Hey guys, in this video tutorial I'm going to demonstrate the Blizzard Photoshop action. So the way the action works is that you start off with your photo, you then trace around your subject and fill it with a colour. You then run the action and this is the effect that the action will create for you. Now I keep everything layered, so if you want to turn off the snow, that's simple to do, and if you do that you're just left with a atmospheric effect, and you can see that I've changed the colours here. So I'll recreate this in the first example. I'll show you pretty much the default result, and I'll go through all the layers and we'll make some changes. Now you also notice there's a light source here, okay? Now with this action, you can choose from 8 different light sources, so I'll demonstrate those here. Okay, now in the second example I'll work with this photo and we're going to recreate this. So what you can see here is that I've imported a photo. You can see there's there's mountains in the background, and there's also some foreground rocks here. Okay, so I'm going to work to recreate that. Now, before we get started, I'll just show you a couple more examples. Alright, let's jump into Photoshop. So before we run the action, there's just a small checklist of things you need to go through to make sure your files are set up correctly and you don't run into any errors. So firstly, when you open up your photo, look into your layer panel and go to this top right hand corner icon. Click on that, go down to panel options. Right down the bottom here, make sure add copy to copy layers and groups is ticked. Click OK. Just back here. So next, go to Image, Mode, make sure you're working in RGB color mode and 8 bits of channel is selected. Next, check the size of your photo. Okay, you can see mine, the size of mine here. This is a good range to work with. Anywhere between, say, 2,000 or 4,000 pixels is a good size for this action. Okay, so I'll just cancel that. So next, what you need to do is load up the brushes that were included in the download. So to do that, you just hit B on the keyboard or click over here, grab the brush tool, right click anywhere over your photo and that will bring up the brushes panel. So what you want to do here is either load the brushes into your existing stack of brushes or replace them all. I'm just going to replace these because I don't need them, so just click on this icon here, go to replace brushes and select the blizzard brushes.abr file that was included in the download. Click on that, and they are the brushes that the action needs. Okay, so when you've loaded up the brushes, just hit B again, make sure it's active. Just double check the brush opacity is at 100%. Okay, whenever there's brushes that need to be loaded up for my actions, it's important that the opacity is always at 100%. So just get in the habit of always double checking that. And also make sure that this icon here is unchecked, okay? You don't want to turn that on. If that is on, the action will run into a lot of errors, so that's important. Turn that one off. So now what we need to do is we need to create a new layer, and on that layer we need to trace around our subject and fill it with a color. So firstly, let's create a new layer. Go to Layer, New Layer. Now this layer must be called brush, all in lowercase letters and no spaces. Okay, if there's a space or an uppercase letter, the action pretty much won't get past the first step and you'll just run into an error. So click OK. So the idea here is on the brush layer, you want to trace around your subject and fill it in with a colour. Now rather than watching me spending a lot of time tracing around this subject, I'm just going to open up a file that I've already traced around with. Where is it? Here. Okay, so here is my photo again. Okay, I've got my brush layer, and basically all I did was, oops, let's turn this off. Traced around it and fill it in with the colour. So that's all ready to go. Now what we need to do is load up the actions panel. So if you go to Window, Actions, wherever that, up the top here. So it'll pop up to the side here. Now you want to click on this icon here. Click on that and go to Load Actions. Okay. Now select the blizzard.atn file and it will pop up here. Okay, so there's the Blizzard folder, and if you twirl that open, you've got all the actions. So let me just quickly explain to you what's going on here. So these actions here, they're the ones that you want to use. Anything under this line you don't want to touch. And I've got in brackets here, don't touch this. Just a reminder not to rename them or play around with them at all, because these actions need these actions to function properly. Okay? So if you can see the way I've labelled these, you've got lighting and then you've got a direction. So for example, top L to bottom R simply just means top left to bottom right. So if you run that action, the light is going to emit from the top left hand corner and it's going to fade off to the bottom right hand corner. Okay. For example, this one here, bottom to top, the light will emit from the bottom and it will fade off as you move up the canvas. Okay. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to check out, I'm just going to turn off the brush layer so I can see my subject again. Okay, now and I'm noticing the light is fairly evenly spread, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the light emit from the top right hand corner and fade off to the bottom left hand corner. So top R to bottom L is what the one I want to use, and so all you need to do is click play. Okay, now as soon as you click play on the action, you'll get a pop-up window and it just says, in the next step, adjust the scale amount to set the width of the main light source. Do not adjust the angle setting in this next step. Click continue below to proceed. So all you need to do here is click continue on this window and you'll notice that this gradient fill window shows up. Okay, so now you can see the light source is corrected. It's going to emit from the top right hand corner and go down to the bottom left hand corner. But the one setting that you might want to play around here is the scale. Okay, so you can see if I select the scale and just adjust that, you can see the light getting wider or become more narrow. So if you want a stronger light source, yeah, just increase the scale. I'm just going to say leave it about there, 77. So you don't want to play around with the angle. You want to leave that. You don't want to play around with this gradient either. Scale is the only one you want to experiment with. So click OK, and then the action will run through to the end. Now there'll be two pop-up windows right at the very end of the action where we can adjust the snow settings. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to skip forward to that point. The action will take anywhere between, say, 2 to 3 minutes to play back. Okay, so and that will depend on the size of your photo and the speed of your computer as well. So I'll just fast forward the video to those pop-up windows. Okay, so the first message reads, now it's time to adjust the snow appearance. In the next window, use the angle setting to adjust the direction of the snow and use the distance setting to adjust the amount of motion blur. After you have adjusted the settings, click OK to continue the action playback. Click continue below to proceed. So when you get this message window, just click continue and you'll notice a motion blur window pops up. Now this is where you can adjust the angle of the snow motion blur. So to do that, all you need to do is click on this wheel and that will adjust the angle. So you'll see here, if you just look in this darker section, as I switch this around, it's very subtle. Now to make this more obvious, I'm just going to increase the distance. Okay, so you can see that now. I'll change the angle again. So you can see the angle changing now. So this is where yeah, you can play around with the angle and the amount of motion blur. But for this example, I'm just going to keep it fairly low. Something like that. And when the action's finished playing back, you can still adjust these settings, so I'll show you how to do that. Click OK, and that will continue on to the next window. And this one says, in the next window, use the levels handles to adjust the overall density of the snow. After you've adjusted the settings, click OK to complete the action playback. Click continue below to proceed. So again, just click continue here. And next you'll get this levels window pop up. And what you want to do here is just play around with these handles. And you'll notice if I grab this top left hand one here and drag this in, you'll see the snow start to really thin out. Okay, so if you want just a few little specks of snow, just drag that right in. If you want a lot of snow, drag that all the way to the left. Okay, now this one here to the far right, this will increase the contrast and also make the snow a lot brighter, so you can see it getting much brighter, so I drag that in. Okay, but for this example, I'll keep it about here. Now if you want the overall brightness of the snow to be reduced, just grab this handle here and drag us inward to the left. And you'll notice as I'm doing that, the snow is starting to fade away. Again, you can adjust these settings after the action's finished. Alright, so just for now, I'm just going to click OK. And now the action has finished. Alright, so I'm just going to collapse the actions panel. So the first thing I recommend you do when the action's finished playing back is to collapse all these folders that are open. Now to do that, you just hold down Control Alt or Command Option and click on this arrow next to the folder icon on the Blizzard folder. Click on that, release the keys, and then twirl open the folder again, and everything is collapsed. It's going to create a bit more room here. Okay, so let me just collapse this again, and I'll talk to you about this setup. So we've got the Blizzard folder that houses all the effects. So if you turn that on and off, you can see the before and after. Okay, now let's say I wanted to try a different lighting angle, or all I would need to do is to delete the Blizzard folder, and you'll see that I've left the brush layer on at the top. Okay, so all you need to do then is delete the Blizzard folder, and then select a different lighting angle, and press play. Alright, so I'll just undo that. So let's jump inside the Blizzard folder now. So I'm going to jump around a bit here, but I am going to go through all these layers and folders and talk to you about what they all do. Okay, so the first folder that I always like to jump into is the lighting folder. If you twirl that open, you can reveal the layers inside here. Now one that I always like to check out is this light fill, and I've got in brackets here turn on or off. So if you turn it off, you'll notice that everything is much darker, and this light source pretty much illuminates just your subject. If you turn this on, everything is much brighter. Okay, so turn it on and off, see what you prefer. You can also lower the opacity of this layer. So if you want sort of a balance between that level of brightness and this level of brightness, maybe just hit 5 on the keyboard. That will adjust the opacity to 50%, just like that. Or you could experiment with double clicking on this layer and changing the color here, so you can make it even brighter if you want. You don't want to go too bright. Okay, so I'll just cancel that. So I'll come back into sliding folders soon. Now, if you don't want any snow, just click this visibility icon on the snow folder, turn that off, and then all you're left with is the lighting effect and all this cloud. Okay, so maybe that's a look that you prefer. Alright, so if you turn off the snow, maybe check out the light fill again, turn that off. So you can see that creates a pretty cool effect on its own. So there's multiple effects you can sort of create here just by turning some layers and folders off. But I'll leave them all on for a sec, and let's go back up to the top here. So this layer here, overall sharpening, and I've got in brackets here opacity. You can see a lot of these layers have in brackets opacity. Basically that's just a little tip, a little reminder to experiment with this layer through its opacity. Okay, this layer will affect the design through its opacity. So this layer here, overall sharpening, what this does, it just applies a little bit of sharpening to your design. If you want to do sharpening at the very end, after you've played around with all the layers, just turn this off. I'll turn this off for the moment because I'll do it at the end just to demonstrate how I create that layer. So I'll just delete that for a second. So this layer here, overall contrast, opacity. So I've got two contrast layers, and they work in slightly different ways. So this one here, the opacity is at 30%, so I'll just click on that word opacity, hold and drag to the left, then right. You can see how that changes the contrast. So that's at 0, or you can just hit the numbers on the keyboard. So if I want 30%, hit 3, 7, 70. So play around with that. By default it's at 30%. This one here, the default was at 45%, so I'll drag that to 0. So you can see this contrast works much differently to the one above. Okay, you'll also notice as you increase the contrast, there's a lot more colour comes into the design. So by default, it's at 45%. So just play around with that one. This one here, overall light glow. If I turn that on and off, okay. So what I might do, I might just turn off the light fill so some of these effects are a bit more obvious. So light fill, you can see that there. Okay. The default opacity of that is at 40%, so if you turn it up, it's just going to spread that light source out a bit wider. So I'll leave that at 40%. Just flick it on and off, see if you prefer it. Okay, this folder here color options. Pretty simple. If you go inside here, I've created 21 color options for you, and the way this works is that you just turn off the eye and then turn on the eye for a different folder, and that will create a different color. And what you can also do is combine them. So let's say I want color option 3, I could turn on color option 1 as well. And maybe you don't want to use, 100% opacity of color option 3. So I could bring this to 0% and slowly increase the opacity. Alright, so something like that. So that's, 46% opacity this one and 100% opacity that one. So, and then you can go down the line here and turn on other, other color options as well. Alright, let's just keep moving down. So this layer here, soft noise, this is just to help reduce some of the banding that some of the gradients might create. You won't really notice it, but it's just a handy one to have there. Color texture, clouds texture, in brackets here opacity. So what I'll do, I'll just set this opacity to 0, 100, and then 0. So you can see it just adds a little bit of cloud texture into the design. The default opacity, that was at 20%. Now this layer here, I might just turn off the snow for a few moments. So this layer here, reveal normal photo, and I've got in brackets here brush mask. So what this layer is, so you'll notice that this mask here is black, okay? And if a mask is black, it's basically hiding that layer. And if you flip this to white, so if I select that mask and hit Control or Command I, that will invert that mask and flip it to white. You'll notice all it is, it's a cutout of your subject, alright? With no blending effects or anything, it's just sitting on top of everything else. So the way you want to use this layer, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to, is let's say for a moment that I want more, of the original look of our photo, up around this area. So what I could do is just hit B, okay? And when you hit B, by default, it will grab this soft brush, alright? So hit B, and we want to make sure white is our active color. So if you hit X on the keyboard, you can flip between black and white, okay? So white. And to increase the brush size, you use the left and right square brackets. So let's just say I want a lot more visibility up here. I could just brush a big spot here. Okay, so you can see that's brought on some of our original photo. Now let's say I want to decrease the visibility of that a bit. There's a couple ways you can do that. You could firstly try this. You could go to Edit, Fade Brush Tool. And so what you can do here is you can actually lower the opacity of that brush stroke that we just made. Okay, so maybe something like that. Or you can lower the opacity of the entire layer. Okay, like that. Or you could double click on this mask and lower the density. Oh, sorry. I think we want to feather it. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, feather that right out, okay, and that will slowly remove basically what we just did. Okay, so let's keep moving down. Darken edges. I've got in brackets here opacity. So if you want to add a like a vignette around your design, turn that on. Okay, that vignette will not cross into this bright spot here, so it won't darken this area here. That will remain bright. Okay. And if I show this mask here, if you want to view a mask, hold down Alt Option and click on it, so you can see the mask here. So you can see I've made this area black where the light source is, so that vignette will not cross into that area. Okay, you can lower the opacity of that if it's too strong. I'm going to use it because I think that looks pretty cool, so I'm going to leave it at 18%. This layer here, increase light source radius, okay, in brackets opacity. So if I crank this to 100%, you'll see it really boosts the light source up. 0%. So just play around with the opacity of this one. I think the default was at 20. So it just adds a little bit of, strengthens the light just a little bit. Okay, this layer here, increase subject detail opacity. So if you want to add more detail into your subject, you could increase that opacity to 100%. I'll show you 0% as 0. There's 100. Okay, the default was at 30%. Alright, so this folder here is called Reveal Faded Off Subject, and I've got in brackets here opacity. So what you will notice is that when you've run this action is that your subject will appear most visible where the light is just hitting your subject, and as the light passes through your subject will slowly fade away in opacity. So it makes it look like, you know, there's a real dense atmosphere, there's a lot of cloud. Okay, so let's say, well, I'll show you what this does. So if you turn on the visibility for this folder, what this does, it just reveals that area that has been faded off. Okay, so you can see that there. So if you wanted your entire subject to be visible, just turn that on. Okay, and so that way there's no fading off. But what you can also do is you could turn this on. Alright, let's just say I wanted, you know, a bit more visibility here, but I want the bottom of the dress to fade away. So what you could do is select the mask for that folder, hit Control or Command I again to invert it. Okay, so we've hidden everything that's in this folder. It's all black. So now just hit B, make sure white is my active color, and start brushing on the visibility for that folder. Okay, I'll hit X to flip that to black. Alright, so that looks pretty cool. Again, you can play around with the opacity of this folder. It says 0, slowly increasing it now. See that come in. Alright, so that is a good folder to control the visibility of the area of your subject that's been faded off. Okay. Now this folder here, actually I'll turn this one off again, and what you'll notice, you'll see some of the dress here is still visible and it's got a little bit of blur. Okay, and you'll notice that as well. You'll notice this as well when you've run the action on your photos, and that is coming from this layer here. Use blurred subject fade off. So if I turn it on and off, you can see that there. So the area that has been faded off, okay, I've just applied a little bit of blur, excuse me, to it. And the opacity of this is at 15%, so I'll just turn this up so it's a lot more obvious what's going on. And you don't want to use it with high opacity because that really doesn't make too much sense. So keep it low so it looks like it's faded off behind the clouds, and the visibility is, you know, a bit blurred out. You can lower that opacity down if you want it to be really subtle. But 15% is default opacity. Now this folder here, main subject visibility, if I turn that off, okay, now this little bit of visibility is coming from this layer here, this reveal normal photo. Okay, if I turn it off, and then you've got this little bit of remaining visibility, and that's coming from this layer here, increase subject detail. Okay, so turn it off. You can see that there, and there's a little bit of visibility which might be coming from some of these masks, but if you turn all those off, you're pretty much left with the atmosphere. Okay, so I'll turn these back on. No, this one, no. Yeah, turn that one back on. Alright, so let's go inside this folder here, main subject visibility, and I'll talk to you about how this is set up. So you've got this layer here, remove subject color. Alright, so what this layer does, it's clipped to the layer below. So basically, this layer will only affect this layer below. And it's a black and white layer. So I'm just going to turn this off for a moment. Okay, so if I increase the opacity of this layer to 100%, it's converted our photo to be completely black and white, which will now adopt the colors, all the colors from this color options folder. Okay, so if I click on this layer and now turn this opacity to 0, okay, so you can see the color come back into our subject. So basically all this layer does, it removes 70% of the color, just so that it is adopted by the color options in here. Okay. Alright, now this layer, turn it off. This layer here, main subject visibility, if I turn it on and off, so that is, yeah, basically what the layer is called, the main subject visibility. If you want to be stronger in visibility, you can increase the opacity to say 100%. By default, it's at 60%. Okay, so it makes it look like your subject is, you know, there's a layer of clouds on top. So if I lower that opacity down, you can see it looks like she's further and further behind the clouds. So at default, it's at 60%. Alright. Let's keep moving down. Let's turn this one back on. Okay, so the next folder here is clouds. So if you turn that on and off, see that there. So you can go inside this folder, and there are 3 different cloud layers here, and I'll talk to you about what this one does. So I'll turn this one off for a second. So you've got individual cloud layers here you can play around with. You can also duplicate them, rotate them if you want more clouds. So this cloud here, clouds set, I've got in breakthrough opacity. This is basically a copy of these 3 below, but it's put on one layer. So if you wanted to increase the overall intensity of the clouds, you do that through the opacity. So I can increase the opacity here, and you'll see that the clouds are getting much brighter. Alright, so the next folder down is the snow. I'll turn that back on. Alright, so we'll go inside here, and I'll talk to you about a couple of things you do here. So this layer here, snow density, if you double click on that, this is that levels window that popped up during the action playback. So this is where you can adjust how much snow you want. So again, I can grab this handle here, drag this to the right, which will decrease the amount of snow. Okay, so that's that. And here is the snow layer. Now if you twirl open, if you click on this arrow here, right in the corner, click on that, that will reveal the motion blur effect. So if you double click on this text here, motion blur, that will bring up the motion blur window. And again, this is where you can adjust the amount of motion blur and the angle of the snow. So you can see I changed that distance amount, and you can get some really streaky ones then. Now what you'll notice is that it doesn't apply the motion blur to all of the snow. Okay, and the reason why it's doing that is because of this mask here on this smart filter. So you'll see here on this mask, I've just clicked on Alt, or click on Option to view that. You can see anywhere that's white is where the motion blur is going to be applied. Anywhere that's, any part that heads towards black, so you've got grey tones here, the motion blur isn't really going to be applied to that area. So let's get out of that. So if you want the motion blur to be applied to all of the snow, hold down Shift and click on that Smart Filter Mask. Click on that, and that will disable it. So now the motion blur is applied to all of the snow. So you can see when I do that now. So you can play around with that. Hold down Shift again to re-enable that mask. Alright, so that's the snow. Let's take another look at the lighting here. So we'll go inside here. Now this layer here, light streaks, if I turn that on and off, I'll just turn off the snow again so it's a bit more obvious. So you can see where the light hits your subject, and then you'll see these light streaks will continue to pass through. That's coming from this layer here, light streaks. Alright, and to play around with the brightness of that, it is this layer just above, light streaks brightness. Double click on that, and again it's a levels adjustment layer, so play around with these handles. If you want to make it darker, drag that into the right. If you want to make the light streaks brighter, drag this one into the left. Okay, so you can see as I really increase that, you can see that the light streaks much more there. If you want to make the general area of the light streaks brighter, you could drag that one into the right, or darker, drag that one into the left. Okay. Alright, so that's the light streaks layer. Now this layer here, boost light pass through. I'm going to break it to your opacity. So you'll notice when I start to increase this opacity, the light source will get much brighter. Okay. But you'll notice that it won't cross all the way through your subject. It sort of just gets to the edge and sort of fades away. So you might like that effect of having a really bright light source, but by default it was at 30%. So if I turn it on and off, you can see that there. Okay, so again, here's that light fill layer. So if you want a much brighter blizzard effect, just turn that on, and you can see the light streak area much more visible then. So this here is the main light source. If I turn that off, you'll see that you're just left with a little bit of light, and that might be coming from this layer here. So maybe you prefer that effect, alright, so you can just turn that one off. Now what you can also do is, let's say the light source has missed your subject's face a bit and you want that to be brighter. You could select the layer here, the main light source, hit B, make sure white is your active colour, and I'll brush a patch here, and then I can go to Edit, Fade, Brush Tool, and then I can control how much of that. So maybe just a little bit, 40%, so that's a bit better. Okay, and this layer here, the background colour, pretty simple. You can click on that box and change the colour. Alright, so you can see here in the, we're pretty close to this now. I'm just going to turn that off. Alright, I don't think I had that one on in this example. No, I didn't. So I'll leave that one off for the moment. So now things are a bit brighter. I could jump back in here, play around with this. It's good how it is. Alright, so it's looking pretty good. Don't forget, if you're changing the background color, jump inside this folder here and experiment with these colors again. Maybe I'll put this, just changing the opacity. Okay, and if you want to fine tune, if you want to play around a bit more with the colors, just create an adjustment layer right at the top here. So click on this icon down the bottom and play around with some of these. You play around with curves. Color balance is a pretty simple one to use, so you click on that, and here you can target the midtones, shadows or highlights. So you can play around with this handle here and that will adjust the colors. Alright, but I'm pretty happy with how it is, and you'll notice in this example here there is a lens flare. Okay, so you can see out there. Alright, so I'll show you how I did that. That's pretty simple. So right at the top here, just click on the overall contrast layer and create a new layer, Control Shift N or Command Shift N. Doesn't matter, call it anything. So you want to fill this layer black. So currently my foreground color is white. I'm going to hit X to flip that to black. Now to fill a layer with a foreground color, you hold down Alt backspace or Option backspace. Okay. Now when you filled it black, you want to go to Filter, Render, lens flare. Where is that? Here. Okay, so here you've got a couple of lens flare options. I think there's there'll be other plugins to create lens flares out there if you want to go look for those, but these are just the standard ones. So I think this was the one I used, and you can play around with the angle here, maybe something like that. So click OK. Alright, so there it is. So what you want to do now is change the blend mode to screen, which will basically remove all the black. So click here, change the blend mode to screen. Alright, so now if I move that layer around, you can see the lens flare. So what you can also do is zoom out, Control or Command minus, scale it, Control or Command T, you can scale that up. I can move that out there, something like that. Zoom back in, so there is the lens flare. Alright, so the last thing I'll do here is just apply some overall sharpening. So to do that, you want to select the top visible folder or layer, and you want to hold down Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E. Basically what that'll do is merge everything that you see onto one layer. So you can see up at the top here, you've got one layer, and you want to go to Filter, Other, High Pass. And you can see a real subtle outline of the details. So, and I like to set the radius to 2. Click on that and set the blend mode to vivid light. And you might not be able to see this as I turn it on and off. You can see that bit of sharpening. Okay, I'll put that inside the Blizzard folder. So that's a rundown of all the layers. I'll turn the folder on and off so you can see the before and after. So there's the original photo, and there's the action. Again, if you want snow, that looks pretty cool. So there's the before, there's the after. Alright, so in the next example, I'm going to work with this photo, and we're going to rebuild this scene. We're going to import some photos. Okay, so let me just get that set up. Alright, so I've got the photo open and I'm just going to go through the motions of setting everything up. So the first thing I want to do is create a new layer. So Control-Shift-N or Command-Shift-N, and this needs to be called brush. Enter. So because my subject is on a white background, it's fairly simple to select, so I'll just hit W. That will grab the magic wand tool, and if I click on that white background and hold down Shift, I'll get this part here under his arms. Okay, so what I need to do now is invert that selection, because currently all I've done is selected all the whites. So to invert that, you hold down Control-Shift-I or Command-Shift-I, and I'm going to fill that selection with the foreground color. So Alt backspace or Option backspace. There we go. So what light angle? So again, we're just going to go from the top right to the bottom left. So I'm going to 12 open the actions. First one, I'm going to hit B. I'm going to check my brush opacity. It's at 100%, so that's good. Top right again to bottom left, and I'll just skip through this part and I'll get to the result of the action. Alright, the action is finished playing back, and you can see my result. So I'm going to collapse the actions panel. Now collapse all these folders. Control Alt or Command Option. Click on the arrow, release the keys, pull that back open. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go down into the lighting folder, and I'm just going to turn off the light fill. So all we're left with is really this strong light source here. Now I want to reduce the amount of snow, so I'm going to jump into the snow folder and I'm going to drag this handle in, something like that, and I'm going to twirl this open and adjust the motion blur. I'm going to try and adjust this to the direction of the light, like that. Increase the distance just a little bit. Okay, click OK there. What I might actually do is I'll turn on the light fill again. I'm just going to lower, I'm just going to use a little bit of opacity from that layer, so about 20%. Now what I might do is I just want to remove this little bit of snow from around his face. So I want his face to be really clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump to this snow layer, or you need to use the mask in the actual snow layer or the snow folder, doesn't matter. So I'll just use the snow folder mask. So click on that, hit B, make sure black is the active color, and I'm just going to brush that away. So if there's any distracting, like this one here is a bit distracting, any distracting snowflakes, then just use the mask to brush it away. Okay, so let's now import our mountain photo. So to do that, you want to select the lighting folder, okay, and go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm just going to navigate to my mountains photo. Here it is here. So when you've imported it, you'll notice that there's a bounding box around your photo. So just position that where you want, or just hit enter straight away. Hit enter. Okay, so there is our mountains photo, and you notice currently it's a smart object, so I can scale that up and down at the moment and it won't lose quality. Okay, so let's now move the mountains to the top here. So you can see there's a bit of work to do here. So firstly, what I might do is I'm just going to rasterize this layer, because I don't want it as a smart object anymore. I'm going to right click and go to rasterize layer. Alright, now what I want to do is just remove all the color. Okay, and what I like to do is go to image, adjustments, black and white. Okay, so that is just removed all the color. Next, what I want to do is set the blend mode to overlay. So that will now start to blend with the layers below, which is our lighting. Okay, so you can see now it's much more visible where our light source is, and as it gets darker, the mountains get a bit darker. So that's what we want. But I'm going to lower the opacity down a bit. Alright, so it looks like it's more faded off in the background. So you can see currently we've got this harsh line here. I don't want any of this mountains to the side, and it's currently crossing through our subject. So what you want to do is apply a mask, okay? And on this mask here, I'm going to invert it. Whoops. Select the mask, Control or Command I to invert that. And I'm just going to brush on with white where I want those mountains to appear. Now I probably shouldn't have released it as a smart object yet, because I actually need to scale this back up. So make sure, yeah, you do all your scaling and positioning first before rasterizing the layer. So, alright, so let's select this, and so all I've done, I've hold down Shift to disable the mask so I can see the mountains properly. I'm just going to position that over here. And what you can also experiment with here is, say, flipping your mountains horizontal. So you can select your photo, go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Okay. I'll position that there. So that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to increase the opacity a bit. Alright, so I'm going to release this mask now. Okay. I'm going to adjust this a bit. I'm going to brush all that in. Okay, so there's the mountains done. Now, what I want to do now is exclude the mountains from our crossing through our subject. So I need to apply another mask, and a good way to apply multiple masks is to keep grouping that layer. So currently I've got the mask on the mountains layer. Now if I hit Control or Command G, that'll group it. So this now enables me to add another layer mask. So I can just select this icon, and you can see it's created another mask here. But what I want to do, I'm just going to undo that. I want to grab our subject as a selection, so we've got the brush layer on at the top here. So hold down Control or Command and click on that. So that has now made a selection around our subject. So now if I select the group that I've just made, and if I click on this icon here, what that'll do, that'll actually mask everything in this folder, which is our mountains photo, to only appear within our subject. So I'm going to undo that and do that again. I'll show what you can do. You hold down Control or Command, click on the brush layer. Okay, it grabs the selection. Now this time, when you go to apply a mask, you hold down Alt or Option, then click on that. And what that'll do, that will exclude whatever's in this folder from appearing within that area, which is our subject. Alright, so there we go, that's looking good. Got the mountains in. What I might do is go into the lighting folder. I'm going to select the main light source. I'm going to hit B. I'm just going to brush a little bit more white around here, and I'm going to go to Edit, Fade Brush Tool. Just want a little bit more light on the corner of his face. Okay, that's looking good. So the next step here is to get those foreground rocks in, and I'm actually going to use the same photo. So I'm just going to collapse those folders a sec. I'm going to File, Place Embedded. Okay, I'm going to grab that same photo again. Alright, so you can see there's the mountains that we used, but this time we want to use this portion of the rocks. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to scale this up. I'm just going to keep it as a smart object for the moment so I can scale it up and down. Move that somewhere around here. Hit Enter. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to lower the opacity so I can see, these rocks. Scale it up a bit more. Maybe something like that. Okay. So here's our mountains again. I might just rename this one to BG Background Mountains. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to release this from being a smart object. So I'm going to right click and go to Rasterize Layer. Okay. Image, I'm going to remove the color again. Image adjustments, black and white. Okay, so there is the color gone. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click on that mask. So by default, it'll apply a black mask, so it'll hide everything. So now what I can do is I just adjusted the layer opacity from 30% to 100%. I'm going to now brush on the visibility where I want those rocks to appear. Okay, pretty much like that. Alright, so you can see the mask there. Alright, I'm going to set this blend mode to overlay, so that interacts now with the lighting in the folder below. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. But you can see now that our subject legs, his legs have disappeared. So what we can do is, let's turn on the reveal faded off subject. Okay, so you can see he's still see-through. So if we go inside here, it's because the blend mode of this layer here is soft light, so it's going to blend onto the layer below. So this is where you just want to play around a bit with the blend mode. So I can change it to say overlay or say hard lights. Maybe overlay, but what I want to do is, again, I want to group this layer, okay, because I want to exclude these rocks from crossing through his legs. So again, I'm going to hold down Control Command, click on that brush layer, and make sure the folder, the group is selected. Hold down Alt Option. Okay, so now I can see his legs much better. But now what I want to do is actually hide this part of his foot behind the rock. So I'm going to select this mask again, and I'm just going to zoom in. You hit B. Currently white is my foreground color, so I'm going to hit X, flip that to black. Make sure the mask is selected, and oops, sorry, I want to flip it to white. I just want to brush that away. Okay, so you can still see a little bit of visibility from his foot, and that's probably coming from this layer here that we turned on, which is. So I'm going to select the mask for this layer, make sure black is my active color because I want to hide this. I'm just going to brush that away. Okay, that other foot's probably okay, but what I might check is just brushing this part away. Oops. Okay, and again here, so it makes it look like his foot is behind that rock. Might look a little bit strange, but no, I might undo that. Just make it so that foot's sitting on top. Okay, and what I could also probably do here is move. No, I'll just keep that how it is. Okay, so now what I might actually do is brush on a bit more cloud around the rocks here. So I'm just going to zoom. I've zoomed out a bit, and I'm going to create a new layer here above all my subject visibility layers. So I'm going to create a new layer here. I'm going to hit B. I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to grab one of these clouds here. So there's a lot of cloud options here, so I might just grab this one. I'm just going to brush some cloud there. I'll lower the opacity down. I'm going to create a new layer. Grab another brush. Maybe this one. What you'll notice that if you say I apply the brush here on the corner of the canvas, and now I move that layer, you'll see that the brush is cut off. So generally what I like to do is just apply the brush in the middle, so just like that, so it's not cut off anywhere. I'll do that again. Right in the middle there, like that. So now I can move that around and rotate it, something like that. Might move that. Maybe a little bit there. Create another layer. Might grab that one. Okay, that'll do. What I want to do now is just adjust this lighting a bit down here. Now what I can do here is create a new layer above. Where will I put it? I'll try putting it here. I'm just going to create a new layer, and I'm going to set the blend mode of this layer to overlay. Okay, So now when I brush black or white, I'm just going to grab the soft brush. Say if I brush black now, what that'll do, it'll darken all this area here, sort of darken yeah, all these layers below. So I'm just going to zoom in. I'm just going to undo that again. Sorry, I'm just undoing that. What I might actually, okay, so I'll just brush this on, the areas that I want to darken, and then what I can do is just apply a mask to that, and then with a black brush, like I just fine tune, you know, where I've brushed that on. Okay. I'll just rename that to darken. I'm creating a new layer. Again, I'm going to set this to overlay, but this time I'm going to brush white to brighten, say this area here. So where that light is, whoops, hitting the rocks. Something like that. Now I'm just going to grab, what I might do here is just lower the opacity of this down a bit. And I might duplicate this layer. And I'm just going to brush on where that's where I want the rocks to be a bit more visible. So where that was the before, that's the after. Just clean this up a little bit more. Okay, I might try moving these cloud layers up a little bit. I might duplicate them. Control or Command J to duplicate layers. I'm just going to merge them on one layer and like that. Okay, I'm just going to lower the intensity of this light down a bit, so I'll see how much this is influencing it. Okay, I might lower this down a little bit. So next what I might do is just adjust the position of these rocks a bit. So I'm going to grab this group, I might just rename this to rocks, and I'm going to unlink this so I can move these two layers around. I'm just going to try and reposition this to a spot that looks a little bit better. Maybe there will do. Okay, next I'm just going to have a quick look at the colors. So I'm going up to color options and I'm just going to flick on one of these. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to check this opacity. Okay, I'm just going to now check the overall light glow. Something like that. I'm going to go into the main subject visibility and I'm just going to try increasing his visibility to say 80%. Okay, that's a bit better. What else can we do here? So lastly what I might do is just look at the light rays here. So I'm going to go into the lighting folder and log the light streaks brightness. I'm going to double click on that. I'm just going to try and increase the brightness a bit here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Alright, so what I might do, I might just open up the original design and see how close I got it. Zoom in. Alright, so there's the original. Okay, and this is what we've just done. And you can see I've also spent a little bit more time here positioning the rocks a bit better and making sure his feet, you know, hide behind the rocks, so that looks a bit more realistic. I could obviously spend a lot more time here, but I think you get the general idea. Alright, I'll just close this down. Alright, so that's it. I'll put a link down to the support page below, so if you're experiencing any errors with the action, firstly just check back on the start of the tutorial, make sure your file's set up correctly, and then check the support page below after that. and I'll also put some links down to other actions which I think you may like. Alright guys, thanks.